¿Qué lo que hay, mi gente? Welcome to Let's Hablar Solita podcast brought to you by Hablemos Productions. Vamos a hablar de todo sin filtro. Let's talk without a filter.
Hi, mi gente. Soy yo, Maya Ladies 7 from Hablemos Productions. I am also the founder of Let's Hablar podcast and Let's Hablar Solita podcast. So I have been trying to do this video for quite some time, but I wanted to get all of the pieces together so that way I can do it justice. And in saying that, Feliz Mayo a toda mi gente mexicana. Hoy es el día 5 de mayo que va siendo el aniversario de la Guerra de Puebla. So for those who don't know, today is not actually Mexican Independence Day. Mexican Independence Day is actually in September. Today is the Battle of Puebla when a small Mexican army defeated the French. So that is actually the history of Cinco de Mayo. In the US, we celebrate Cinco de Mayo with tequila, tacos, and festejo. But this is not what this is about. This is not about history. This is about accountability. And when I say accountability, I mean accountability us as US citizens when it comes to Mexico. A lot of US citizens have this idea, this belief that they are entitled to certain privileges, certain benefits of this country that they can carry over into other countries when they're visiting. That's not the case. So recently, events have changed in Mexico to where El Presidente Obrador has made legislation to deport non-legal residents. That is what you're hearing. Non-legal residents. Basically, US citizens who can no longer afford housing here, basically they can't afford to purchase property here and they can't afford a mortgage here, are choosing to move to Mexico. They're using US dollars in the economy, not contributing to taxes in Mexico, and they're overstaying their visas. Or they do not have the proper documentation. So typically, if you go to Mexico, you can stay for 6 months and then leave and then come back and stay for another 6 months. However, a lot of people are staying longer than 6 months without even coming back so much for a day or even an hour and then staying pretty much the whole time paying what they would pay for in US dollars without converting it into pesos and not contributing to taxes. And not only that, they are gentrifying beaches, they are gentrifying restaurants, pueblos, comunidades, and that is not what Mexico will stand for. And I'm telling you this as someone who's a Mexican American. Soy mexicana, soy puertorriqueña, soy estadounidense. I am also a US citizen, pero también soy mexicana y soy puertorriqueña. Soy orgullosa de mis raíces. I am proud of my roots. I am Mexican. I'm Puerto Rican. I am proud of my roots. However, I was born in this country. Yet, I feel that when we travel abroad, we have to be respectful of the places that we travel. And unfortunately, not all of the people who are born in this country like me think the same. We have a lot of people who are going to hotels, such as those who are going to hotels in Mazatlan. Mazatlan is in Sinaloa. Sinaloa is a very well-known town for not town, pero más bien comunidad, pueblo, ciudad, estado, municipal, however you want to refer it. It's basically Sinaloa is basically known for banda, okay? They are known for banda music, just like Guadalajara, Jalisco is known for mariachi. They're known for mariachi. It's if you go to Guadalajara and you say, "Oh, I can't, no mariachi music here. No mariachi music." You are basically slapping the face of every Jalicense, anyone who is a native to Guadalajara, because Guadalajara is known for mariachi music. We have a place called Xochimilco. Xochimilco is known for being el lugar de los mariachi, and you hear all different kinds of mariachi bands playing their music with such orgullo, with such love, and with such passion that it really, really just intoxicates you with this overwhelming peace. But you have people from our country, the United States of America, going to Mexico and telling them that they're too loud, that they're playing music too loud, that it's detrimental to their health. It's not detrimental to your health. Why? Because you're not from there. You're overstaying a visa, you're not contributing to taxes, and you are not giving back to the community. We also have people who went there for the solar eclipse that happened, I want to say, back in was it late March or early April, somewhere por ahí. And they were complaining about the locals being in public spaces. Oh, we rented this place. You can't, there's no way you can rent a place that is public for yourself. You can't do that. In Mexico, there's a law that's put in place that there is actual public areas that cannot be rented for small gatherings. They belong to the public. So you can't rent a small place of the property of the section, none of that. It's not allowed. Just like public beaches, they are not private. So beaches, all beaches are considered public. You're not an owner of the beach. The beach is open to everyone. That is by law. And people are using their privilege or their entitlement to try to kick off the locals from public beaches, from even like little parks. They're trying to use that, saying, oh, I paid X amount because so and so said that I had it for like 4 hours. Excuse me. Yeesh. No, you don't have it for 4 hours because by law, you do not have the availability to rent out the space by law. And that's something that I feel like us as people in general, typically when we go to places, we don't investigate the rules and regulations of those places. I think that we should take the time to know what the laws are like, right? So they'll look up when people go to Mexico, they'll look up what the legal drinking age is and then use that as them having done research in Mexico. That's not that's not research, okay? Because in Mexico, well, a kid from the 90s, right? So, in Mexico, I was able to go buy my tios their beer and bring it back to the house, but I wasn't able to buy it and drink it at 4 years old. Absolutely not. I was able to buy it, bring it back to my tios, and then drink my soda out of a bag. And that was pretty much it for me. But seeing this entitlement and them trying to close down restaurants, them trying to kick out mariachi bands who have been there for generations, and you're telling me that they cannot play their music? ¿Estás loca? Like, ¿qué te pasa? What are you doing? Where's your humanity at? Like, I just don't understand. But then when people come to our country, they're so upset, they're so angry at the fact that they're coming for a better life, but they're contributing to the taxation. And first of all, let's get something very, very clear here. Okay, very, very clear. When you go to Mexico, you don't have to buy from a marqueta. You don't. You can go to a mercado and buy something full whole price, and not it doesn't go towards taxes. Okay? So it's not like us when we go to a grocery store, right? So when you go to a grocery store, you pay, let's say you're paying $200 worth of groceries, and then whatever the taxes are on your groceries. Okay? All of that goes towards taxes, but for the business establishment, right? You are putting taxes in because that business is now claiming I sold X amount of merchandise and this is how much tax was on that merchandise. So it goes into the taxation system. But when you go to a supermercado, right? So let's go to this big mercado. It's not Walmart. It's not Sam's Club. It's not a local tienda like a super. It's not a kiosco, it's just a mercado with a stand. That person is selling to you their product. They're selling to you eggs, verduras, lo que sea. You are paying basically a flat rate in most cases. You can also go to a tianguis. A tianguis, you may have a couple of people who are selling verdura, right? They're selling vegetables. They're selling to you at a flat rate. So you're not paying taxes on these things. You can pretty much buy certain things without having to pay taxes on them if you know where to go in Mexico. So if you're paying US dollars, you can have X amount of money and use that to your benefit. And it's not going into the taxation system, especially if you're working like let's say you're working as a independent contractor and your job is based in the US but you're living in Mexico, you are getting paid a US dollar amount. Your benefits all come from the US, but you're not putting into the tax system here in Mexico. You don't do that. But when people from Mexico, Nicaragua, and other places of the world come to the country of the United States of America, when they're working, they don't get a refund. Okay. They have to file taxes. They don't get a refund. And you cannot tell me that they don't file taxes. They do file taxes. I know what they look like. They don't get refunds. So anytime you say that they don't pay into the tax system, they do. They contribute to taxes. They don't get the benefits of a refund. We, US citizens and people who have residency, have more benefits than someone who is just a resident, temporary resident, not a permanent resident who has a work visa. It's different. They don't get a refund. Now, they don't even get the benefits of, like, let's say, health insurance, right? So certain health insurance benefits when it comes to taxes, they don't receive those. Now, they can get a fine. They can get a fine for basically shared responsibility here in the United States, but they don't get that benefit of the certain tax what's it called? Write-offs from certain health insurance vendors. So they don't get those things. There's been laws in place that are trying to help those who are temporary residents to get benefits for that purpose, because think about it, it comes from your check, a certain portion of it goes towards the tax system. It's another thing that benefits the country, not necessarily the individual, other than the fact that they get health insurance benefits. But when you do it the other way around, when you're going to Mexico and you're paying a flat rate, you're not paying with pesos, you're making US dollars, you're not putting into any sort of the taxes, you end up causing an inflation spike. You end up causing gentrification. There's no other way to say it. People are gentrifying Mexico. They're essentially trying to discreetly colonize Mexico in their own way, and Mexico is no longer having it. Within the first month of this new law being put into place, they arrested over 240,000 US citizens and they deported 7,000 within 1 week. So I just want you to know that this is a very serious matter. And if it bothers you, it's because it applies to you. And when I say it bothers you, if you are offended at the fact that people are being deported from Mexico back to the United States of America, it's because you're part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I think that that's something that we have to have in mind. Let's become part of the solution and not part of the problem. And when I say that, it's not that hard to get residency in Mexico. It's really not. And it's not that hard to at least be mindful that the way of life is different, okay? It's not your country. it's not your country of origin. Now, someone like me, who I am used to having gone to Mexico every summer since I was 2 years old, I'm 32. So for 30 years, I have been going to Mexico pretty much my whole life. Mi abuela es de Jalisco y mi abuelo es de Michoacán on my mother's side. So, el boricua viene de papi, okay? Pero mexicana viene del lado de mi mamá. And I feel like I'm equally both. People ask me all the time, which do you feel like you're more of? I feel like I'm equally both. I was raised more so with my mom's Mexican culture. So I am used to making tamales with my tias, with my mom, cada Navidad. I am used to, we used to do el rosca. We used to do that when I was little, and we don't do that anymore. I think everybody got scared of getting the baby Jesus because nobody wanted to throw in the next party. But I'm used to doing that stuff. I'm used to my family making mole, making botanas, and just celebrating together in a way that felt very much in familia. I'm used to that. I'm used to when we would go to El Rancho, it was a completely different way of life, right? But we respected the community that we were in. We knew that we were visitors and we acknowledged that we were visitors. But I feel like people who don't acknowledge that and that are going there and they're making restaurant owners throw out food because it's too spicy, or they're trying to get restaurants closed down because the music is too loud. First of all, if you're going to go retire, like, let's be real. Let's be 100% honest. If you're gonna go retire in Mexico, why don't you pick an area que no está en el centro, que no está en el centro de la comunidad? Like, you gotta really think about it, because this person who there's a restaurant called Gaby's in Puerto Vallarta, and I would love to have any any of the chefs on, any of the musicians from Gaby's, and even La Doña de Gaby's restaurant de Puerto Vallarta. I would love to have you. I will tag you in the description. I would love to have you on just so you can explain to us how we can help from afar. I would truly love to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. But I saw that she was claiming that the music was damaging to her health. So essentially, you're trying to get no more music from Gabi's restaurant that has been there for decades. I think it's been there for over, like, if I'm not wrong, for like 50 something years or more. If I'm correct, it's like 50 something years or more. Chef Julio Castellon, and it's Gabi's restaurant. So Gabi's, GABYS restaurant PV. So I'm assuming PV is for Puerto Vallarta, pero Gabi's restaurant in Puerto Vallarta, it is open Monday through Friday, and Chef Julio Castellón, I invite you over to Let's Hablar Solita. Sí, hablo español, lo hablo muy bien. Bueno, lo hablo mucho, pero hago el intento. So, si usted quiere hablar en español, yo con mucho gusto. Me gusta la práctica. Me gusta tratar de mejorar mi español, pero se le invita y también se invita a la dueña para que podamos hablar cómo podemos hacer parte de la solución y no parte del problema cuando se trata de la gente que está destruyendo, yo creo que el ambiente de nuestro México lindo y querido, porque para mí México significa amor, paz y familia. Eso para mí es México. México siempre se me ha hecho un lugar donde uno puede estar con su familia en paz, divertirse con música y con botanas. So for me, Mexico has always been a place where, like, we can live in peace amongst our family and with botanas. I really don't know what the word for botanas is in English. That is something that is completely, like, it's not coming to my brain. But I invite you guys to join me on Let's Hablar Solita podcast, so that way we can discuss how I can be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. Check out Gabi's restaurant on, it is Instagram, so gabis.restaurant.pv. And they basically are explaining, they had basically, I want to say, like, you know how like here in the US we have cookouts, we have block parties to be able to help the community. They basically had a big old gathering at Gabi's to have the community come, enjoy some food, listen to some music, and sign a petition on behalf of the restaurant um, that they were going to use to be able to demonstrate that Gabi's was a significant part of the community. That's from what I gathered on the videos on TikTok. So for me, places like Gabi are very near and dear to my heart. I really, truly enjoy them. I enjoyed them when I was growing up with my tío, antes de que falleció en paz descanse. He would take me to every little hole in the wall. We would go and we would watch mariachi. We would go watch bandas. We would go watch even like some drag shows. It was always something different. And that's the part of Mexico that I love, is that it was a place. It didn't matter who was there, right? It didn't matter si era un festejo de drag queens or si era de bandas, mariachis, or lo que sea. It didn't matter. It was always about community. And for me, that is what I cherish about Mexico. That is what I cherish about mi México lindo y querido. Pero lo que no me gusta, lo que a mí me choca, es que hay esta gente que está yendo para allá tratando de beneficiar de no tener que pagar ciertos impuestos, de no tener que contribuir a la comunidad y beneficiar sobre el costo de los materiales, que las cosas no están tan caras allá en México como acá en Estados Unidos, y que pueden hacer lo que se les da la chingada gana sin tener que tomar responsabilidad y salir con la suya. Pero el presidente Obrador dijo, ¿sabe qué? Una hasta aquí. Nosotros no somos el Estados Unidos. Ustedes no son protegidos por las leyes del Estados Unidos. Estos son las leyes de México y se tienen que respetar. Y eso a mí es lo que me dio mucho gusto del presidente, es que dijo, hasta aquí ya estuvo, no más. Y están deportando a gente. Pero a mí lo que se me hace chistoso, se me hace gracioso de todo esto, es que hubo una señora gringa que se molestó y dijo, ya tengo que empacar todas mis cosas, me están corriendo porque dicen que yo estoy aquí de ilegal. Yo hace 2 años me mudé aquí. ¿Hace 2 años? You moved here 2 years ago and you were complaining now that they're telling you overstayed your visa. You broke the law, ma'am. You broke the law. You broke the law. You overstayed your visa. And it's just like the TikToks that I've seen since the beginning of the pandemic. There were women who were going and moving to Mexico and they weren't paying the rent. And so when they were being kicked out, they were trying to go get their things. And the landlords are like, no, we're not releasing any of the things inside of the apartment until you pay what you owe. And they were upset. They were going to the embassy, the U.S. embassy in Mexico, and they were complaining, saying that they were being held kidnapped, but they weren't being held kidnapped. Their stuff is just being put on lockdown until they pay their bill. Like, it's the audacity of some people not wanting to follow the law. And they get mad. They say that we break laws when we go there. In our country, you're a tourist. And in our country, our home country, de donde vienen nuestras raíces, you are a tourist. But when they come here to the US, which was land that was stolen by the indigenous people, it was stolen from the indigenous people, we are invading. We're illegal. Doesn't matter how we get here. And that's the reality of the situation. Because if you ask anybody how they get here, if they get here by plane, if they get here by bus, if they get here by car, it doesn't matter. They never tell you. They just say the right way. They don't even explain to you what that means. However, they go by plane, or they go by car, or they go by bus, and they overstay their visas to Mexico, and they're benefiting off of the system of Mexico, and yet they're a tourist. ¿En qué cabeza cabe? Where does that make sense? Where? And when I saw the solar eclipse, the woman who her name was Tanya DeYoung, she she works for a business here. It was a traveling industry business. They worked in expeditions. She was yelling and screaming at a reporter, yelling and screaming at a small child in Durango, and you act like you girl, you are not from there. And this is where it goes back to public places are not for small social gatherings. They're not able to be rented as small social gatherings. And you know this. You absolutely know this. But you choose to act like you don't. You want to have your cake and eat it too. And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you have to share. And it's really disrespectful that you're kicking people, the locals, out of what's their home. People are just mad. The reason why people are mad about it online is because Mexico said, hasta aquí, I had enough. Like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. I've had enough. Hasta aquí estuvo. Ya fue suficiente. De verdad. Like, ya. Deja con babosada, mamada. Ya, estuvo. Hay que, hay que hacer las cosas claras. Cuentas claras, amistades largas, como dice mi abuela. My grandma always said that, cuentas claras, amistades largas. So it's like, let's make everything clear so that way friendships will last. The law is simple. It works both ways, right? If you want people to come here with certain laws and regulations, they expect the same. That's the reality of the situation. There's nothing, this is a simple topic, you guys. It's a very simple topic, is that mariachi music has been around forever and a day, and it belongs to Mexico. Banda music belongs to Mexico. You're not going to make it go away. As much as you kick and scream, it's there to stay. Comida mexicana. That's another topic that I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about this with Let's Hablar podcast in our next episode. We're going to get into this conversation more in depth. This is just going to be a small episode, but comida mexicana, like, it's gonna have some spice to it. It's gonna have some sazon. It's gonna have some flavor, and the issue is that people are mad because it's too spicy. Well, there's a way to ask in Spanish. Even if you don't speak Spanish, it's es picante? Es picante. And then if you say it with a question mark on your face, they're going to know if you're asking if it's spicy. And that's when they're going to be able to tell you, oh, sí, tiene picante. And if they say sí, that means yes. And then you say, oh, no pica, por favor, no pica. And they won't put spicy on it. Problem solved. They won't have to throw out food. It won't be wasting food. They won't have to make their menus any less spicy to benefit you. There will be no more gentrification of meals. Okay? Leave salsas alone. Leave chile alone. As someone whose spicy food is a little bit much sometimes, and it hurts my pancita. Leave it alone. It's that simple to ask. ¿Tiene picante, sí o no? Picante means picante means spicy. So that's all you gotta ask, and I guarantee you, you guys, you'll be fine. It's not gonna be that hard to ask si tiene pica o no tiene pica. It's the easiest thing to ask and the easiest answer to get. Presidente Obrador, sé que en este momento están en una campaña para las elecciones. Yo solamente quiero decirle a usted que se le agradece las nuevas leyes que se han hecho para proteger a nuestro México lindo y querido. De verdad, nuestro México necesita ser protegida, especialmente después de todas las cosas que se han dicho de la gente republicana aquí en los Estados Unidos. Y cuando yo digo la gente del el Partido Republicano, me refiero a gente como DeSantis, la Haley y otras personas como ellos que dicen que van a invadir a México para, según, encargarse de el fentanilo y de los carteles. Yo no estoy de acuerdo con ese mensaje que ellos dan. Yo creo que México sabe muy bien cómo proteger a su país y cómo protegerse. Yo creo que México sí es libre del Estados Unidos, es independiente y sí creo en lo que usted dijo. Yo creo que es muy cierto. Nosotros que somos mexicanos en este país del Estados Unidos tenemos que ser por nuestra parte todo para poder proteger a México y no sería una forma utilizando métodos de violencia, sino nuestras voces con nuestros votos. Tenemos que votar con gente que, que representan lo que nosotros que deseamos para un país, ¿verdad? Tal como la gente en México. La gente en México también tiene que votar con sus principios, con sus morales, para la gente que representa esos principios y esos morales. Y para mí, usted lo dijo bien claro, yo escuché y estoy de acuerdo. México es un tierra libre del Estados Unidos. Tiene su gente aquí, que nunca se les olvidó sus raíces, como yo, y como muchos de mis familiares. Y yo voy a utilizar mi voto para poder votar, para proteger a mi familia que todavía sigue en México. Voy a votar por gente que representa esos principios y que apoya a mi gente. Y no voy a votar para un sinvergüenza que está pensando en poner a mis latinos, a los inmigrantes, en campamentos, ni invadir a México. Porque México es libre, es un patria libre de y que está muy bien, que se puede decir, muy bien en un país bien rico, no solamente en, en manera económico, pero también de cultura. Y de verdad, yo deseo que siga siendo así, que los que representan a nuestro país de México lo hagan con honor, con dignidad y que lo hagan con respeto. Gracias, presidente Obrador, por pensar en su gente, en la gente que usted declaró y juró representar. Gracias por pensar en ellos. Yo sé que no hay ningún, y eso lo quiero dejar en claro, no hay ningún representante político perfecto, ¿verdad? Eso lo tenemos que dejar en claro, pero hay unos que hacen lo mejor que puedan. Y yo creo que usted está haciendo un buen trabajo. Gracias por las nuevas leyes cuando se trata de que los hijos de 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 los hijos que pueden ser ciudadanos mexicanos con el nuevo ley que hizo. Si la gente no sabe, México hizo una ley gracias al presidente Obrador que si usted tiene papás mexicanos que nacieron en México, tú puedes aplicar para ser ciudadano mexicano con las actas de nacimiento comprobando que tus papás nacieron en México. So you can basically become like a dual citizen. Puedes ser un ciudadano mexicano y estadounidense a la vez. So, gracias, presidente Obrador, por eso también. We'll talk more about this on Let's Hablar podcast. Catch you guys later. Adios. Bye. Gracias, mi gente, for tuning in to Let's Hablar Solita podcast. Bendiciones siempre. Remember, aquí hablemos sin filtro. Bye.